Blog Talk Radio.
There's a direct relationship between having the businesses and being in prison. Go find see how many Asians you can find in American prisons. They ain't gonna be in there. But 51% of your prisoners will be black because blacks don't have any businesses and industries. There's a direct link. Blacks won't practice group economics. Blacks won't practice group politics. If you don't practice, you're setting yourself up. I told that 5-story building, you're setting yourself to get wiped out. Understand the nature of race, which is economics. If you build the first floor, it's economic. Build your businesses and your industries. Control business and industry, and put that pools in your money, and hold that money, and practice group economics with it. Arab and Asian money bounces 12 or 13 times what it leaves. Jewish money bounces 18 times. Black folk got to learn how to practice group economics. Black Americans spend every penny they get outside their own community. Then you take the money and the wealth that you get from that first floor and go to the second floor. The second floor is politics. You then take that money on the first floor and you control your politics. Black folk must quit allowing people to tell them to go out and vote. Vote for what? Nobody's going to do anything for black folk in politics. Politics is controlled by money. Major corporations who got the money. That's what controls politics. If you have no money, you have no say-so, you have no benefits coming. So you take your money and you control, and you take your money on the first floor, you buy every politician on the second floor. And any politician you can't buy, you rent or lease them to get what you need. Then once you get the second floor under control with the politician, with your money, then you go to the third floor. The third floor is the police department and the court system. You take your money from the first floor and your politics on the second floor, and you control the court system and the police departments. Then the fourth floor then is media. You then take the money that you generate off the first floor from business and industries, and you go after radio stations, TV stations, newspapers, and cable systems, so that you can now inform and communicate with your own people. Right now, black folk own and control less than 35 thousandths of 1% of the media in the United States. Out of 12,000 radio stations, black folk own about 75, 80. That's all. You own no cable systems. You don't have a daily newspaper. You have nothing of importance. You got about one black TV station. And so you can't communicate with your people. You can't inform your people. You can't do anything. You can have Rush Limbaugh and all the rest of the guys talking about racism all day long and bad-mouthing you, and O'Reilly. They can call black folk all kind of names all day long. What are you going to do? You can't respond. You can't communicate with your own people because you don't have an economic base. 51% of all the prisoners in the United States are black people. You only make up 12% of the population. That's no accident. It's because you don't control the economics and the politics. And they're going to go after the weakest people they can get their hands on to incarcerate them. That's the black folk. And what are you going to do in response to when they over-incarcerate you? You're going to go out and have a march, a demonstration. We're going to march. March for what? Who cares? Marching never changed anything.
Adam Clayton Powell, for the first time, was defeated. Charles Rangel won in a very close election. Within a few years, Adam Clayton Powell would contract cancer and die.
If we must die, let us not die like hogs penned in some inglorious spot. What use is an extra year or two to the man who kills the time that God has given him?
Much of the story of Adam Clayton Powell is on display here in this anteroom of the Abyssinia Baptist Church. But there are many parts of the Adam Powell story that you cannot see hanging up on the walls, mainly the ironies in his life. Isn't it ironic that Adam Powell was such a loud voice that few people would listen to? Perhaps if his loud voice had been heated on the question of police corruption, there may not have been a Knapp Commission. If his loud voice about government corruption had been heated, there may not have been a Watergate. If his loud voice against hypocrisy on Capitol Hill had been heated, perhaps Wayne Hayes and Tom Dodd and Earl Butz and Carl Albert and countless others might not have been caught in such embarrassing situations. Adam Clayton Powell represents still another chapter in a long story of black militant fighters against oppression and injustice here in America. He wasn't perfect. He had his faults, but don't we all? The point is, he was a fighter. If he did play He worked harder than he played. Most of all, he was a fighter.
As I know here, you're in trouble. Where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them. A young slave boy stood one day before the greatest ruler of his day. And God said to Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses said, Lord, only I've got a stick, that's all. He said, well, let me use what's in your hand. And God used that slave boy with a stick in his hand to divide the Red Seas, march through a wilderness, bring water out of rocks, manna from heaven, and bring his people to Freedom Land. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? George Washington Carver, who was so frail that he was traded for a broken-down horse as a slave boy. And George Washington Carver, sitting in the science laboratory at Tuskegee, told me, he said, Dr. Powell, he said, I just go out in the fields each morning at 5 o'clock, and I let God guide me. And I bring back these little things and work them over my laboratory, and that man did more to revolutionize the agricultural science of peanuts and of cotton and sweet potato than any other human being in the field of agricultural science. What's in your hand? Just let God use you, that's all. What's in your hand? I've got a string in my hand, that's all, and I'm flying a kite. And way up in the heavens, lightning strikes it. And I, Benjamin Franklin, discover for the first time the possibilities of electricity with a string in my hand. What's in your hand? Little hunchback sitting in a Roman jail? I haven't got anything in my hand but an old quill pen, but God says, write what I tell you to write. Paul wrote, I have run my race with patience. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth is laid up for me the crown of life. What's in your hand, little boy? All I've got is a slingshot. And the enemies of my people are great and big and more numerous than we are. Well, little David, go down to the brook and pick out a few stones and come on back and close your eyes if you want to and pull back that slingshot and let it go. And David killed the biggest enemy, the leader of the giants, against his people, and his people became free, just letting God guide a stone in his hand. And a few years passed, and David is a king. And God says, what's in your hand? He said, I've got a harp in my hand. He said, well, David, play on your harp. And he played, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Leadeth me beside still waters. Yea, though I walk through the valley and the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? Man hanging on a cross. I've got 2 nails in my hand. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraws thyself from me, whither shall I go? And that man, with 2 nails in his hand, split history in half, BC and AD. And what's in your hand tonight, people of Cambridge? You've got God in your hand, and he'll let you win because he's on your side and one with God, always in the majority. So walk with him and talk with him and work with him and stick together and fight together. And with God's hand in your hand, the victory will be accomplished here sooner than you dreamed, sooner than you hoped, sooner than you prayed for, sooner than you imagined. Good night and God bless you.
Now learn this from Joel Osteen. That's my man. He be texting me. That's my man. God done put some people around me, show me some stuff. he was telling this story. He said, this man that went to heaven, he was walking with Peter down this aisleway, and it was going down this corridor, had a lot of doors on it, and said all these doors had names on it. And he said, Peter, let me ask you something. What's all these doors, these names on? He said, don't worry about it, just go ahead. So he kept walking. And messed around, he saw one of them doors and had his name on it. He said, whoa. He said, hey, Peter, this here ain't got my name on it. Something I need to know? He said, man, don't worry about that. You here now. Just go on in there and talk to him, see what he said, no, I want to know what's in the door. He said, you sure you want to see what's in the door? He said, yeah. So he opened up the door. It was a warehouse. It had numbered shelves on it. And then the shelves had nothing but packages. And all the packages had his name on them. And he said, what is all these boxes? He said, that's all of the blessings, all of the things God wanted to ship to you. But number one, you didn't ask him for it. Then number two, you didn't believe you would have it. Then you doubted him. And then you felt like you wasn't worthy. And so now all these boxes is uphill. Now the man standing there wishing he had never even been in the room. And I started thinking, I got some dudes that work for me. And I said, I want you to do this graph for me. And that's what I'm finna show you now. See, what happening is, when God sends your package, he only sends it to one street. That's Faith Street. You got to stay in faith. You can't move off of Faith Street. You can't get on Doubted Drive. You can't be over there and start doubting it, because your package going to go right on by. You can't lose your faith and get on not meant to be way, because your package is going to keep going right on by. Because the package just go to Faith Street. You can get your little feelings hurt, I ain't worthy. Guess what? Your package going to keep going right on by. You have not because you ask not. Then you sit up here and start feeling sorry for yourself. You go over on pity way, your package keep going right on by. If you stay right on Faith Street, don't ever come off, because the blessing is coming. If you wait on it, here it comes. It may not come when you want it, but it's on time. But if you get up and you move off of Faith Street, your box gonna get sent back to sender. And now you're gonna have a warehouse with a bunch of boxes with your name on it that you didn't never get. And I don't know about you, but I want everything he got for me. If he got something for me, I need all of mine. Because I don't know about you, but God lay you out, man. God will give you stuff. Man, he done took me places I ain't never thought I was going to go. I done seen parts of the world I never even thought I could go to. He done gave me stuff. He done put people in my life. God will do it for you, man. But you just got to stay, man. Use these principles of success. Understand, God is just that way. He'll lay you out. Because if he can lay me out, see, if he fix me and change me and get me over here trying to do better, I ain't perfect. I'm just trying to do better. I still say some stuff I ain't supposed to say. You understand? I ain't got it all together yet. I just got in the gate. I'm a new kind of Christian, but ain't no lock on my gate either. So if you see, once you check me, I'm probably gonna check you back. But I'm getting better at that. I don't know how to love my enemies yet. I'm getting better at it, though. But it's a process. And the more times we can make people understand that it's a process, the more people can come in. And y'all people that have been good to me, that have been praying for me. I mean, man, my mama, if she could see me now, I just wish my mama could see me. Because she been praying for this here all her life. Watch my son. Well, he done watched me, mama. And I'm cool now. And my philosophy is very simple. I was who I was, but I am who I am. And I'm cool with both them people. Because who I was wasn't that bad, Cap. I made some mistakes, but I've been changed a little bit, and it's still a process. And the more people that you invite into the process, the better this is. Because ain't nobody perfect no how. So I really appreciate y'all, man, hearing me and listening to me. I'm going to ask.
Well, hey, folks, and welcome to Solar Cabin Channel. I've got a neat little project for you I call the Multi-Shack. This is one of my homeless housing solutions designs. And some of you probably don't know this, but I was homeless twice in my life. The first time was when I was trying to get into college, and I had lost my job and was waiting for my college funding to come in, and so I had to live in my truck. I lived in the cab of my truck for almost 2 months while I waited for my college funding to come in. And then again later in life, when I got divorced and didn't have a job and was trying to get off grid, I lived for almost 2 years in a camp trailer. And you know, there's a lot of people that homeless people that have their pride. They want to maintain their independence. They don't want to live on welfare. They don't want to be caught up in the system. And you know, all they need is a simple shelter. You know, someplace to get out of the cold, to get out of the wind, to get out of the rain, while they get back on their feet. And so I know there's a lot of organizations out there that are helping the homeless, churches, nonprofits, and things like that. So I came up with this small structure design, which I call the multi-shack, because it has actually multi-uses to it. And it can be built very affordably. You can build this entire shack for under $200. And it is built on wheels. It can be put on either a 4x6 trailer, or you can build it on casters. Casters are a lot less expensive, but it still allows you to move this unit around. So you could store, you know, a bunch of these on a church parking lot, and then just when you need them, you can move them out to wherever you want the person to be using them. Casters are 4-inch casters. Each caster will hold up to 240 pounds, so they'll more than handle the weight for this structure here. Now this structure is 6 foot 5 inches from the peak to the bottom, 6 foot 5 inches. So and even a tall person can stand upright inside this structure. The door is 1 foot 6 inches wide and about 5 foot 3 inches to the peak up there in the door. And the structure is 4 foot wide approximately and about 6 foot long. About 6 foot long by 4 foot wide, 6 foot 5 to the peak. And this is constructed very inexpensively from 2x4 framing, which I'll show you, and uses, I would use 7/16 OSB or plywood. Either one would work for the siding on this. Now, a couple of the features here. I show this with dorm windows. The dorm windows are actually optional. You don't have to put dorm windows. You can just go with a flat roof surface if you want here. I show this with wood shingles, or you could use just plain old tar paper and roofing shingles. Any type of roofing shingles would work on this. Show it with a little flower box there just for effect. And on the backs and the front, I show this with these round windows, like boat-style windows, or you could put square windows. Either one works. I just like the effect of the round windows, the look of those in there. This does have an access panel on the back. Down here is an access panel. We'll just open this up so I can show you. Open up, take this one off. There we go. Now you can see inside the access panel, underneath the seat and bed is storage. Lots of storage underneath here for a propane tank, one of those Portaloo porta potties, an ice chest over there you can see. Okay, so there's good storage. This is about 18 inches high inside here and about 4 feet wide inside. So the structure, I'll show this with the door open. Let me just hide this door here. With the door open, you can see I've got this set up. Right now I've got it set up for seating. During the day, this would be used for seating purposes. Okay? And I'm going to pull the side roof off here so I can show you inside. But this has a very nice space for a person that maybe is going to school or working, or just the table can be used for eating or whatever. So you've got approximately 6 feet of space on the inside here by 4 feet wide. And this table is actually part of the bed platform, which I'll show you. You just pull the 2x4 out, put it in one of these slots. It's in this 2x4 here. There's another one on the other side. You just drop the 2x4 into the slot, and then you take your bed panel and put it up on top of that, and then that becomes a table. Here you've got 2 foot by 4 foot cushions. There's 3 of these cushions that become your bed, or you can use a roll-up mattress pad underneath this that becomes your bed. But during the daytime, it becomes seating. It becomes a little mini couch in here, 4 foot wide. And now you've got a space for a student to do their studies, their work, or for having your meal, or if you're working on a hobby or a craft or something like that, you've got this nice little space. When you get out the door, you just lift the table up, put it back, put the 2x4 back in the bottom slots, put the table down, and, then you turn it into a bed. And I'm going to show you what it looks like as a bed, too. So, good headroom in this. I really like that it's got a very good space. This is an average person, 5 foot 8 inches tall. You can see you've got lots of headroom here. You've got these nice dormer windows, which would give you lots of light, and also gives you a little bit more headroom up in this area right in here. 6 foot person could stand up in the middle of this quite comfortably. 2 people could actually sit side by side on this couch, or you can put in you could pull your ice chest cooler out, or someone could put a foldable chair on the other side here. So you could actually have 2 people sitting side by side or crossways next to each other here. So lots of space in this little place. So let me show you what the framing looks like on this first. And I'll just have to zoom in on this. Now this is all done with 2x4 construction to keep it inexpensive and easy to build. And then I would sheathe it with either 7/16 inch OSB or plywood. Either one would work. Now it's got a floor frame, as you can see, made of 2x4s down here. Simple 2x4 frame, floor frame construction, and then your casters attached to the corners, not exactly in the corners, but they attach to the floor framing. And the casters have locks on them, so once you move this in place, you can just click on the locks and lock it in place so it won't be rolled around while the person is inside it. Now, this is the bed platform, and it has this back platform is 2 foot 6 inches wide, and it is permanently connected. These are 1 foot 9 inch wide platforms that can be raised up, and as you can see, these 2x4s right here, you put the 2x4 up in these other slots, and then you put these panels up on top, and they become either a table or a workspace. This one can go up here. This one can go on the end. It can go over the middle. So I gave you lots of options for the ways that you can organize this into workspace or living space as you need to use it. Very simple construction. It takes about 20 2x4s to build this. That's about it. And you're looking at about under $200 for all the material costs. And you could build one of these in a day. Seriously, you could build the complete unit in about a day. And now I'm going to show you on the inside how this can be used as a bed and also as a small business. So I'm just going to click off this. Okay, now I show this with the bed down. The door open so you can kind of get a peek inside here. Now, this is an uninsulated structure. You really don't need insulation in a small structure like this because the human body puts off about as much heat as a 90-watt light bulb. So in a small structure like this, your own body heat will actually heat it up. And for sleeping, you can either do these pads like this as mattress pads, or you can just get a sleeping bag pad or even an air cushion pad to go underneath it. A sleeping bag pad would work fine because you can roll it up and use it as your seating. And a good heavy-duty sleeping bag would be all you would need in order to sleep very comfortably in here. As long as you don't have the wind blowing on you or the rain drenching you or snow piling up on you, you'll sleep very comfortably in a small structure like this. Your own body heat will heat it up. You could add a heater to these, but it really isn't necessary in these small structures. So I'm going to pull off the side roof, and I'm going to show you how much space this has inside it for a bed. It actually has a very nice bed that will sleep either 1 or 2 people. Pull this off here. Just hide this. Now this has a 4 foot wide by 6 foot long bed. So even an average person can sleep in here. Even a tall person, fairly tall person, could sleep in here comfortably without being cramped. And it's 4 foot wide, so that's a very wide bed that will actually sleep 2 people. 2 people could sleep in this space. All right, and it's 6 foot wide, and it's 4 foot wide and 6 foot long. This person I show in here is about 5 foot 8 inches tall, which is average height for most people. And here you can see the slots I was talking about. These platforms which I'll show you. I'll take the bed off now. These two platforms are removable with 2x4s underneath them. You just take the 2x4, you put it in the slots that go across here, and then put these platforms up on top to make your table. And you can actually do a table on either end, or one in the middle for a desk and table. Now, the ones on the ends I'll show you are used if you want to run a small business out of here, or if you want to organize this in a different way so that if you're cooking, you could put one of these tables on this end or on this end, and you could set up your cooking supplies, and you can take care of yourself. You can cook a meal inside this little place right here. So 4-foot wide, 6-foot long bed, and then very adaptable with these platforms of 2x4s. You can just put them up, and you can reorganize this any way you want during the daytime for whatever function that you're going to be using. Again, it has storage space underneath the bed and seating. You've got that nice access panel for you got storage underneath there. And I really like the space in here. This would be enough adequate space if in an emergency. Let's say that a city has a disaster, a fire like they just had in Canada wipes out all these homes, or you have a tornado tear through a place, or you have flooding or something like that, which we've all seen in the news, happens all the time, and suddenly churches are overrun with people that don't have housing. If you had a bunch of these sitting around that would sleep at least 2 people, you could pull these out in a small area, you could set these up, and people would at least have shelter for survival until they can get into houses or shelter, bigger shelters or something like that. So that's another use for this type of structure here. So now I'm going to put the bed back on just to show you. And again, you can see this has really nice dormer windows. So you got really good light in this. And it's got an excellent sleeping space. It would be better for 1 person, but it would be adequate for 2 people. Okay? And, if you got little teeny kids with you, you could put, 1 adult and a couple of kids in there, too. There's enough space in there to sleep comfortably, and you've got lots and lots of headroom. You're not going to bump your head or anything while you're sleeping. Doorway, 1 foot 6 inches wide, 5 foot 3 inches to the top up here. So lots and lots of good space in this. Now I'm going to show you how this can also be modified to be used as a small business. Okay, one thing I know about people that are homeless is they're also very creative, and a lot of them actually run little businesses in order to support themselves. A lot of them do recycling. They recycle cans and bottles and other stuff like that, or they pick up small appliances and stuff that they may find on the streets, or books or pictures or whatever, and they resell them, and that's how they support themselves. A lot of them are also very crafty people. They may make jewelry, or they may make wood crafts or something like that, or they may be artists. And so they have a way to support themselves, and so I think we ought to encourage that, because that helps them to develop sustainability. Not everybody is equipped to work in the regular workforce. Some people just aren't, but they're very industrious and can support themselves with a small business. And so I thought, well, this shack could also be used for setting up a small business. So what I did is I made this so that the window here can be hinged up, and I'll show this. The window on one of the dormers, or both, can be hinged up out of the way. And then you've got room here to put a sales counter or little platform here, where this person is 5 foot 8 inches tall. A person can stand in this window, and they can operate a small business. They can talk to customers, they can take money or whatever, working right out of this small shack. Now, this doesn't necessarily have to be for homeless people. If you wanted to run a hot dog or hamburger stand, or sell your crafts or your books, or whatever you want to do with this, maybe it's a ticket stand, I don't know. This little shack could be very useful for a lot of different purposes. That's why I call it a multi-shack, is because it can be used for many different purposes. But this would be great for a homeless person that has a craft that they make, or recycle products or whatever. They want to sell them. They just hinge up the window, and they set themselves up a little business here to take care of customers. Now, this also shows inside how those tables can be reorganized. Here you can see I've lifted up the bed platform to put a table on this end, another table on this end, and you can use this for cooking in here. You can see I've got a little 2-burner propane stove that you can set up on one of the tables up there so you can do your cooking. You can work on your crafts. This table just lifts off. The 2x4 lifts off if you need to get access to the door. Lots of good headroom, okay? Workspace in there. This can be modified many different ways for many different people of however you want to use it. So a very functional space in there. All right, so that is the multi-shack, all right? And let me just unhide this so you can get a better view of it. Again, can be built very inexpensively, around under $200 on casters, more expensive if you put it on a trailer. And I'm going to provide these plans for free because this is a project that I designed specifically for churches and nonprofit organizations to build shelters. And at present in the U.S., we have about 1.6 million homeless people that just need a simple shelter to live in, or we have that's about 1 out of 200 people, and that's just in the U.S. There's a lot of people in other countries that are in even worse shape, and I really think a project like this would be great for helping the homeless people to have shelter while maintaining their independence and their pride. But it could also be used as disaster relief shelters. We could easily have a major disaster in a city where we have thousands and thousands of people that suddenly are homeless, and we need to provide quick shelter. These would also work for that. It would be big enough space for 2 people to sleep and, to take care of their basic needs, and that's what this structure is about. So I hope you like this design. It's called the Multi-Shack. You can get the plans for free on my website, simplesolarhomesteading.com. Up at the top, look at Multi-Shack. Now, there is a button there if you would like to donate. Your donations are used by me to design structures like this and build small houses. I work with a lot of homeless people that don't want to be in the system, that want to build their own off-grid cabins and houses and places like that. I help them with designs and building those projects. So any donation, if you can donate, is very appreciated and will help with those projects. All right, folks, I hope you like this project called the Multi-Shack, and have a great day.
Adam Clayton Powell, for the first time, was defeated. Charles Rangel won in a very close election. Within a few years, Adam Clayton Powell would contract cancer and die.
If we must die, let us not die like hogs penned in some inglorious spot. What use is an extra year or 2 to the man who kills the time that God has given him?
Much of the story of Adam Clayton Powell is on display here in this anteroom of the Abyssinia Baptist Church. But there are many parts of the Adam Powell story that you cannot see hanging up on the walls, mainly the ironies in his life. Isn't it ironic that Adam Powell was such a loud voice that few people would listen to? Perhaps if his loud voice had been heated on the question of police corruption, there may not have been a Knapp Commission. If his loud voice about government corruption had been heated, there may not have been a Watergate. If his loud voice against hypocrisy on Capitol Hill had been heated, perhaps Wayne Hayes and Tom Dodd and Earl Butts and Carl Albert and countless others might not have been caught in such embarrassing situations. Adam Clayton Powell represents still another chapter in a long story of black militant fighters against oppression and injustice here in America. He wasn't perfect. He had his faults, but don't we all? The point is, he was a fighter. If he did play, he worked harder than he played. Most of all, he was a fighter.
As I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them. Remember that. A young slave boy stood one day before the greatest ruler of his day. And God said to Moses, "What's in your hand?" And Moses said, "Lord, only I've got a stick, that's all." He said, "Well, let me use what's in your hand." And God used that slave boy with a stick in his hand to divide the Red Seas, march through a wilderness, bring water out of rocks, manna from heaven, and bring his people to Freedom Land. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? George Washington Carver, who was so frail that he was traded for a broken-down horse as a slave boy. And George Washington Carver, sitting in the science laboratory at Tuskegee, told me, he said, "Dr. Powell," he said, "I just go out in the field each morning at 5 o'clock, and I let God guide me. And I bring back these little things and work them over my laboratory, and that man did more to revolutionize the agricultural science of peanuts and of cotton and sweet potato than any other human being in the field of agricultural science." What's in your hand? Just let God use you, that's all. What's in your hand? I've got a string in my hand, that's all, and I'm flying a kite. And way up in the heavens, lightning strikes it, and I, Benjamin Franklin, discover for the first time the possibilities of electricity with a string in my hand. What's in your hand? Little hunchback sitting in a Roman jail? I haven't got anything in my hand but an old quill pen, but God says, "Write what I tell you to write." Paul wrote, "I have run my race with patience. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth is laid up for me a crown of life." What's in your hand, little boy? All I've got is a slingshot, and the enemies of my people are great and big and more numerous than we are. Well, little David, go down to the brook and pick out a few stones and come on back and close your eyes if you want to and pull back that slingshot and let it go. And David killed the biggest enemy, the leader of the giants, against his people, and his people became free, just letting God guide a stone in his hand. And a few years passed, and David is a king. And God says, "What's in your hand?" He said, "I've got a harp in my hand." He said, "Well, David, play on your harp." And he played, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures, leadeth me beside still waters. Yea, though I walk through the valley and the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil." What's in your hand? What's in your hand? Man hanging on a cross? I've got 2 nails in my hand. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraws thyself from me, whither shall I go? And that man, with 2 nails in his hand, split history in half, BC and AD. And what's in your hand tonight, people of Cambridge? You've got God in your hand, and he'll let you win because he's on your side and one with God, always in the majority. So walk with him and talk with him and work with him and stick together and fight together. And with God's hand in your hand, the victory will be accomplished here sooner than you dreamed, sooner than you hoped, sooner than you prayed for, sooner than you imagined. Good night and God bless you.
Say some shit to y'all that I seen yesterday that made me smile, but it hurt me to my heart. There's a house next door to me that's been abandoned, and the yard, the grass high as hell and everything. There's a couple of abandoned cars out there beside the house. Well, yesterday I get off work about 7 o'clock. A Mexican guy pulled up. He said, "These your cars?" I said, "No." He said, "I just bought this house, man." I said, "All right, that's what's up." He was like, "You know whose cars these is?" He said, "No." He said, "Well, I bought the house, not the cars." Okay, I'm like, cool. I'm thinking he just coming to look at the house. I go back in the house, do a little straighten up. I swear to God, I walk back at the house. Now, I'm getting off about 7:20. It's fucking 9 Mexican trucks just pull up. They got fucking beer, lights, and shit, right? So I'm like, what y'all finna do? He said, we finna fix this house. I said, what kind of crew you got working after 7 o'clock? He said, these my friends. The fucking house is fixed this morning. They went in there and drywalled that fucking house. Wow. I just left out of there. It was a fucking abandoned house. That bitch looked new this morning. Whew. It was an abandoned fucking house. And it looked new this morning. It's an old African proverb. Many hands make light work. I just don't think they're better than us. I just think we won't do nothing together. Wow. You're not hearing what the fuck I'm saying. It was an abandoned house yesterday at 7:15. That bitch is new this morning. He bought a tax lien house. I can't wait to see what they do. I can't wait to see, is one family gonna live in there? Is they gonna? I'm gonna get to know the motherfuckers. You best believe me, when I make some money, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna bring us together, and I'm not fucking with a lot of people.
After listening to Adam Clayton Powell, What's in Your Hands, and then the 9, what I call 9 friends, and it was actually more than 9 friends, because, all right, it was, let's do the count here. 9 pickup trucks. I'm just guesstimating that there were at least 2 people per truck. The driver that drove the pickup truck, and then 1 person in the pickup truck. They could have had some people in other parts of the, the back of the pickup truck, or depending on how the pickup truck was designed, because some have cabs where you can put 2 or 3 people in the back seat. But I'm just looking at a basic run-of-the-mill pickup truck that can, you can seat 3 people, but let's say 2. So 9 pickup trucks times, 2 hands each. That gives you 18 sets of 18 hands. The guy who bought the house, let's add his 2 hands on. So let's say they had at least 20 hands to make a house that had been in disrepair look brand new in the course of a work shift. You figure a work shift is 8 hours, and then let's add on, another. Let's say you drove an hour, it took 1 hour to get to work, an hour to get back home. So, 10 hours. 10 hours, 20 people. All right, so let's take a look at our hand count, because matter of fact, I'm looking at hands now. Hands were the original power tool. The original power tool. Hands. And most people have them. So, all right, so week 1 of our boots on the ground in Jacksonville, we got 10 hands. We got 10 hands week 1. And then today's Wednesday, so week 2, we got, which was Monday, in 1 hour, we got actually 22 hands, but then from one of those 22 hands, we got another 2 hands. So from Monday, the net total so far is 24 hands from just a 1 hour boots on the ground radio broadcast. So adding week 1 and week 2 together, because we doubled up more than doubled up, is we have 24 hands, boots on the ground in Jacksonville, Florida. Right, so we've got more than enough hands. Plus, we have another 4 hands that are remote from the original 4. So we've got more than enough hands. Now, of course, these hands, out of the 24 we have when we have an event on the 26th, we don't know how many of those hands are going to show up. So I'm just saying this is what we've got. And, I mean, I've talked to 24 people in the last week or so, a week and a couple of days. I've talked to 24 boots on the ground, Jacksonville, Florida hands. In any event, let's see. Let's go to the phone. So we're still processing people. We're still processing because it's a lot's been going on. Let's see. 813 area code. Your mic is open. Okay, they might have stepped away.
Hello, I'm here.
Okay, all right. Any comments, thoughts, or anything?
No, I'm just a long time caller and a long time listener, just listening in today.
Oh, okay, that's your role today. All right.
Yes. Okay. Holler if you need me.
Yeah. All right. I sure will. Okay. Let me use that. All right. So we have. Okay. So between last week and this week, the correct number is. Wait a minute. Let me get it right. All right. 34 hands. 34 hands plus the original 8 remote hands. So we've got 42 hands. 42 hands total. Okay. And 34 of that 42 hands are boots on the ground in Jacksonville, which we'll be meeting in the 26th. Now, we have other dates we have to plan, but we're still processing this this list right here. Matter of fact, I got to call, because you got to stay in touch with people. I'll be calling off. I'll be making 34 additional phone calls today. But in any event, so we should be able to. Now, of course, we've got to organize the total of 42 hands. We got to organize it. So today is Wednesday, so we don't want to waste any time, as Adam Clayton Powell stated, and warn of New Orleans or wake up New Orleans. Thank you for making us aware of what's in your hands. And like I said, for me, I'm looking at your hands. They're not your only original power tool, but they're very important. So when you think, man, when you're down on your luck, when you need a particular financial miracle or whatever, you don't know how to go to A to B or A to Z or whatever, and you think you have nothing, you actually do. You have hands. And if you don't have hands, like Jamarian Styles, all right, he had a couple of stubs. He had enough of his arms, at least, to catch the ball, and he used his body to catch the ball, and he had enough of the stubs left to shoot. So bottom line is, if you're fortunate enough to have a hand or two hands. Okay, and then here's another thing. Well, let's go back to Jamarian Styles. Jamarian Styles, somebody had to pass him that ball. Somebody had to pass him that ball. So Jamarian, because basketball has 5 players on the court. Each team has 5 players on the court. So Jamarian had no hands. He had 4 teammates out there on the court with him, and that's 8 hands. So he had 8 hands to pass him that one ball, and he had enough on him with his arm stumps or whatever to catch the ball, position the ball, and shoot it, and he scored 6 points. So if you think you don't have what it takes alone, being alone, that's all right. Go out here and recruit more hands. Now, today's podcast is titled Homes Built by Social Capital. That's what we do. We don't go to banks, we don't go to finance companies, we don't go to loan brokers. Your credit score does not work here with us. Okay. And we're not doing anything new. The Amish do it, the Mennonites do it, the Hutterites do it. When the Jehovah's Witnesses are building their kingdom halls, they all use social capital. You do not have to be a member of a religious group to use social capital. But we will be educating people by real-time projects on how to build homes with social capital, and basically how an individual can build social capital, all right, how to spend social capital. So you can get, if you don't have any dollars or cents or euros or drachma or pesos or rubles, which is government-issued legal tender, don't forget a part of your original currency is not your only original currency, but part of your original currency are your hands. All right, so we will be given, and basically everybody's been given some basic instruction, particularly from your parents, on how to build social capital, which, you know what, it's really being nice. Being nice goes a long, long way. Matter of fact, before I go to even how we got it on here with the podcast. So, building social capital, that's social capital. We're not talking about building buildings, but you need to build social capital if you want to build with social capital. You know, build a structure with social capital, meaning other people's labor, knowledge, expertise, that type of thing. Spending social capital, because you need to know how to spend it. You need to be frugal and sensible about spending your social capital, even more so than using a credit card, getting a bank loan, or spending your paycheck. All right, social capital finance, which is illustrated in the Nine Friends thing. Instead of him getting a loan, paying all those people, currency, he was building social capital in other ways. And then there's social capital bankruptcy. Now, this program, It's My House, we got 2 names for this. It's My House, and then our YouTube channel is DIY Housing TV. I had a house sitter that I was about to go to Europe in 2-3 days, so I had an ad going in the paper. But I came across somebody I knew, and they were headed to a shelter. Them and their child, headed towards the shelter. They had just got kicked out of their brother and sister-in-law's house. Now, I totally ignored that red flag because, the week before that, there was some friction in that household where she was a guest, her and her daughter, and she called the police on her, not father-in-law, brother-in-law, and then, of course, a few days later, well, I guess they told her, you got to bounce. You got to move out. So I ran across it. So I was about to go to Europe for 3 months. And I wanted somebody in my house that I knew. So I knew this person, had a decent relationship with this person, particularly on a business level, for a few years. So I said, well, look, you don't need to go to a shelter. You two can stay house sit at my place, at my house, because I'll be gone for the next 3 months. So, and at that time I was going to Europe. I was living in Europe 6 times a year. I mean, not 6 times a year. 6 months out of the year. I would go 3 months, 90 days, then come back over here for 90 days and go back. So I did that twice a year for 5 consecutive years. So, that worked out. That house, what do you call it, the house sitter arrangement I had worked for a little bit, 2+ years, until I asked the person to move out. And they didn't want to move out, and then they squatted. It took me almost 3 years to get them out. So now, they didn't have to pay me any rent that whole time. Now, they got in my house because they had social capital with me. But as soon as they squatted and caused all kind of havoc and unnecessary expense, their social capital with me became bankrupt. Now, I'm not blaming them. I'm blaming myself because I ignored that they got kicked out of their sister and brothers-in-law's house because they went bankrupt there. And here's something that my mother told me that I didn't recognize at the time. And because let's take inventory of this particular case. They were headed towards a shelter. So we knew that they were socially bankrupt. Their social capital was bankrupt at this particular sister and brother-in-law's house. So they got kicked out of there. They were bankrupt there. All right. She had another sister. She couldn't go live with the other sister, so she was bankrupt in 2 households. She couldn't go to her mother's house, and my mother told me when she heard about it, if a woman can't go, you're in bed. You don't want to deal with that person. But I ignored all that. So she couldn't go to her mama's house. Her parents were divorced. Couldn't go to her father's house, and she had an uncle. They were on good terms, but she couldn't go to his house. So that was and of course, friends. There was no friend that she can go to. So I'm going to just say she just had one friend. We probably had more than that. But that's at least 6 households, 12 hands, actually more than 12 hands, because some of these people were married and had other people in the household. But that was at least 6 households where she was her social capital was no good. She was socially bankrupt. So she was headed toward shelter. So essentially, because what I went by at the time was I said I'd never had any problems with this person, which I hadn't. But I totally ignored that, you know what, if she's socially bankrupt with those people, she might end up socially bankrupt with me, and that's what happened. And that was the inspiration for the podcast that you're listening to now, or the series called It's My House. That's how It's My House came to being, because of a person who was socially bankrupt. So what we talk about is, and why I play the 9 Friends audio so often, is I want people to think about, how can you, because when I do these podcasts, I'm basically building my social capital. When we do the radio shows on Monday, we're building social capital. So we've been able to build, what is it? Let me look at my list again. 10 and 24. In the last 2 weeks, 20. Oh, am I right? Yeah. 24. Yeah, 24 is one more person. I haven't called them, but they haven't picked up the phone. So, yeah, 11 calls. I need to look at my list again. I think I'm short by one. I got to look at the list. So 24 hands plus 10 the first week, so that's 34 hands. 34 hands plus the original 4. All right, so 34 plus 8, that's 42 hands total. 42 hands total. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to round it out today with Adam Clayton Powell. What's in your hands? Okay, because we got those 34 hands, new hands, would essentially, and it was more than that involved because there were people at the radio station. We don't know how many hands were involved there. But, you know, on my end, smartphone, Robin has a smartphone, Delmar's a smartphone, and I would say most of the people who called had smartphones. So let's close it out on what's in your hands.
Adam Clayton Powell, for the first time, was defeated. Charles Rangel won in a very close election. Within a few years, Adam Clayton Powell would contract cancer and die.
If we must die, let us not die like hogs penned in some inglorious spot. What use is an extra year or two to the man who kills the time that God has given him?
Much of the story of Adam Clayton Powell is on display here in this anteroom of the Abyssinia Baptist Church. But there are many parts of the Adam Powell story that you cannot see hanging up on the walls, mainly the ironies in his life. Isn't it ironic that Adam Powell was such a loud voice that few people would listen to? Perhaps if his loud voice had been heated on the question of police corruption, there may not have been a Knapp commission. If his loud voice about government corruption had been heated, there may not have been a Watergate. If his loud voice against hypocrisy on Capitol Hill had been heated, perhaps Wayne Hayes and Tom Dodd and Earl Butts and Carl Albert and countless others might have not have been caught in such embarrassing situations. Adam Clayton Powell represents still another chapter in a long story of black militant fighters against oppression and injustice here in America. He wasn't perfect. He had his faults, but don't we all? The point is, he was a fighter. If he did play, he worked harder than he played. Most of all, he was a fighter.
As I know here, you're in trouble, where it says about 30% are unemployed. That's why I'm working hard to get this surplus food here. Some of you say to me, well, I'm not like you. I'm not a congressman. I haven't got education. I haven't got work. But you're a human being. And you know what you've got? You've got in your hand the power to use your vote and to use even those few cents you get from welfare to spend them only where you want to spend them. A young slave boy stood one day before the greatest ruler of his day. And God said to Moses, what's in your hand? And Moses said, Lord, only I've got a stick, that's all. He said, well, let me use what's in your hand. And God used That slave boy with a stick in his hand to divide the Red Seas, march through a wilderness, bring water out of rocks, manna from heaven, and bring his people to freedom land. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? George Washington Carver, who was so frail that he was traded for a broken-down horse as a slave boy. And George Washington Carver, sitting in the science laboratory at Tuskegee, told me, he said, Dr. Powell, he said, I just go out in the fields each morning at 5 o'clock, and I let God guide me. And I bring back these little things and work them over my laboratory, and that man did more to revolutionize the agricultural science of peanuts and of cotton and sweet potato than any other human being in the field of agricultural science. What's in your hand? Just let God use you, that's all. What's in your hand? I've got a string in my hand, that's all, and I'm flying a kite. And way up in the heavens, lightning strikes it, and I, Benjamin Franklin, discover for the first time the possibilities of electricity with a string in my hand. What's in your hand? Little hunchback sitting in a Roman jail? I haven't got anything in my hand but an old quill pen, but God says, write what I tell you to write. Paul wrote, I have run my race with patience. I've finished my course. I've kept the faith. Henceforth is laid up to me a pot of faith. What's in your hand, little boy? All I've got is a slingshot. And the enemies of my people are great and big and more numerous than we are. Well, little David, go down to the brook and pick out a few stones and come on back and close your eyes if you want to and pull back that slingshot and let it go. And David killed the biggest enemy, the leader of the giants, against his people, and his people became free, just letting God guide a stone in his hand. And a few years passed, and David is a king. And God says, what's in your hand? He said, I've got a harp in my hand. He said, well, David, play on your harp. And he played, the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. Maketh me to lie down in green pastures. Leadeth me beside still waters. Yea, though I walk through the valley in the shadow of death, I'll fear no evil. What's in your hand? What's in your hand? Man hanging on a cross? I've got 2 nails in my hand. Father, I stretch my hands to thee. No other help I know. If thou withdraws thyself from me, whither shall I go? And that man, with 2 nails in his hand, split history in half, BC and AD. And what's in your hand tonight, people of Cambridge? You've got God in your hand, and he'll let you win because he's on your side and one with God. Always in the majority, so walk with him and talk with him and work with him and stick together and fight together, and with God's hand in your hand, the victory will be accomplished here sooner than you dreamed, sooner than you hoped, sooner than you prayed for, sooner than you imagined. Good night and God bless you.